Welcome to Real Local. I'm Kurt Broderson, and today we'll be meeting Team Middlebury, who entered the Sleepless in Burlington film competition back last month. And we'll be watching their film, asking them some questions. So I'd like to welcome them here to the studio. We've got Mike Godomsky and Hunter Nolan and Matt Lennon, three of the team members. And welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. So a couple of you guys are film majors. Mike isn't. Other team members, there's a couple that weren't here. I've watched several of your other films over the last couple of days, see what other kinds of things you've been involved in. Can you just kind of tell me a little bit about what brought you together as a team for the competition, and maybe your background at the college in filmmaking?
I think that last year we also entered this competition. Mike and I are the only people that were there last year and then jumped back in this year. Mike is great with recording sound and making original music at the same time, so he was a big help. And I shot the film for the college last year, but decided to direct it this year with the help of Mr. Matt Lennon, who was working hard the entire time at editing while we're getting all the footage in. Then we had Zach Doliak was our cinematographer, and David Siemens was our writer, and Ethan Murphy, the technology supervisor at Middlebury, was pretty integral in pulling us together as a team.
Did it come together out of a class that you guys shared, or did you know
It came out of, I mean, we all knew each other because some of us are film majors, and then Mike is friends with Hunter, and I've become good friends with Mike now this semester. And it was kind of just, we had different film majors, and then Ethan kind of just selected people and asked them if they were interested in helping out. Our writer, he had asked last year, after last year's competition, if he could write for this year, and so he was on the team earlier on. So it was kind of selecting from different groups throughout the major, but it wasn't from a defined class or anything. It was just kind of picking people who had the best skills for a certain position on the team, and then going from there.
How far ahead of time did you guys know it was the group of you?
Probably about 2 weeks before was when the group fully came together.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the process from kind of the day that it started on Friday morning? When they gave you the pieces that you had to integrate into the film. Some teams were starting totally, hadn't met each other before that morning. You guys said you knew each other ahead of time. What was it like that Friday morning when you found out more specifics about what you needed to do?
It's interesting because last year they actually did not tell us our elements until Friday night. So we drove up to Burlington not really knowing anything, and I think Barry Snyder, who sort of puts it all together for the festival, his idea was that he thought if he gave us more time, we'd actually end up, sleeping a little bit more, hopefully. But I'm not really sure it worked out that way. So this year was different because we got our stuff at Friday morning, and so some of us had class to go to, but we did meet for like a brunch, and we immediately started just getting right into story ideas. And I would say by the time we all got to our hotel in Burlington, we had a pretty rough idea of what we wanted to do. And I know it's like some teams were, by the time of the meeting had more ideas fleshed out than others. But I think we made pretty good use of our time, and by the time we got out of that meeting, we had a good idea, and then we spent the night fleshing out those ideas on paper.
Speaking of staying at your hotel, how did you guys feel being kind of the out-of-towners with the other three teams coming from either Burlington itself or right around there? Did you feel at a disadvantage? And obviously Middlebury's not far away, but knowing the turf and where you would want to shoot and things like that.
That was a little difficult kind of going into it, kind of picking out a location or something, but we're close enough to Burlington that we know of specific locations. We don't know maybe all the great locations, but we all have friends who have either go to UVM or go to schools in that area, and so we definitely were contacting them saying, hey, what would be a great location if we wanted to shoot in a house, or something along those lines. Hunter had a really good friend that lived about 10 minutes away, and he got in contact with her, and she was more than happy to let us use our house to shoot for a majority of our shoot. But a lot of it was just kind of, and it was also nice just to have, we set up our entire lab essentially in the hotel room, and that was really nice actually, we had our own defined space. I was in my editing room, Mike had his music room, and then we had a room just for sleeping. But I don't know, I kind of liked it to have our own space because we were able to still bring all of our equipment over and just turn it into our own little nook.
Yeah, I'd say that we didn't really cut many corners with equipment, even though we were the out-of-towners. We had 2 carloads pretty stuffed full of people and equipment. And our hotel rooms, we had two rooms basically just for production, and then one for the people that need to take a shift of sleeping. And it was funny, Mike is in one room right here, facing the wall, like working on his bass and piano and stuff, writing music. It's like maybe 2 a.m. on Saturday night. And then Matt is on the other wall in this adjoining room looking basically at Mike, but through a wall, editing on the computer. And, we have it was just kind of comical, the setup that we created. But
yeah, I think we just kind of, we embraced the situation, like it's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, well, and being able to combine it kind of in a set of hotel rooms, I was thinking, other teams putting it together in their dorm rooms, running over to a lab somewhere. I don't know exactly what setups they had, but being able to compile everything in one place might have actually been a big advantage for you guys.
Yeah.
At least over the weekend, not having to go to class at 8 o'clock in the morning and then jump back into work.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of doing some of the editing and kind of handing it off to Mike to score pieces, were you able to do things in chunks and move it on for further production?
That was the original idea. We definitely wanted to be like, okay, I will send you this scene. You can go score that. That was the original idea early in the night. We had a bit of a snag at one point, and because our film was very kind of disjointed and jumping back and forth, and so it was a little difficult to kind of have something like that. But after about an hour of just kind of having a little bit of trouble with it, we definitely found a good space, and once I would work on it kind of linearly, so I would send Mike a chunk of 2 or 3 minutes to say, put on an external, just run it over to the next room, he'd score it, give it back to me, and then we'd look at it and go, that's brilliant, and and then we just kind of go from there. But yeah, it was, the original idea was to do it scene by scene. Didn't work out as much as we had hoped, but we still had it planned out, because from the start Mike knew that we wanted kind of this end song and then something in the middle, and then the beginning was very important. And so he was working on that throughout the night as I was kind of picking away at the edit. And I would send him kind of specific times, all right, this last song needs to be 2 minutes as opposed to a 30-second song. And so that kind of hopefully helped him out.
Yeah, it's sorry to interrupt. It's definitely a big challenge because time is so short. A lot of times you just need to be doing multiple jobs at once. So sometimes even when I was on set towards the end of our shoot, Matt would be set up in another room of the house we were shooting, and he's starting to do rough cuts. And I'm holding the boom for a scene, but at the same time I'm thinking about what I want this scene to sound like, which is just not something you'd normally do on a shoot where you have more time than that. And so yeah, a lot of times I would have to start with a rough idea because it's already 1 a.m. I don't want to waste time sitting around, so it would have to be make this song roughly 2 minutes, and then maybe an hour later I'd get a scene, and then I'd have to sort of mold it too. So a lot of things are happening at once, which is it makes it really exciting, to be honest. But everything's just totally on the go.
Yeah. So did you have your roles kind of divided up already, and then certainly find yourself filling in different shoes? Were there things that you kind of came across that you were, weren't maybe planning on doing that you ended up doing that liked? I mean, because when I went in as an actor, part of my being there was I wanted to participate in the whole production, not just the role that I was cast for the Burlington College team was something where I was on screen 10 seconds, 15 seconds, but I got to spend the whole day with them, which was a lot of fun, and doing things that I wouldn't have ordinarily done. Were there things like that that you guys jumped into because you had to, or other students that were with you that helped out?
I think that we came into it with a very clearly defined set of baseline responsibilities, because in the past Ethan has done it down Lake Placid, and we've all done some other things where the positions are kind of convoluted, and it ends up taking more time if everyone is trying to do the same thing than if you just assign one person to do specific things. So we had Zach on camera, me directing, and there's always something to be doing when you're waiting for the next thing to be ready. Mike's checking the frame to make sure that his microphone is going to be in the right place. We're getting test levels from the actors so that we're ready. I'm running over lines with actors, and Zach is rehearsing a camera move while Matt is uploading the next camera chip to the computer. And we definitely did fill in gaps when there was a lot of hurry up and wait, or there hopefully wasn't too much, but when there was times that we found one person needing help, or we have to lay this dolly track down. That's something that everyone will jump in with, and all hands on deck.
Right. Now, with a couple of you guys being film majors, a couple of you not, I know, like when I worked with Burlington College, they were all film majors who had known each other since freshman year. Did you guys feel well prepared to be up there? A couple of you guys were there last year. Did you feel you had the equipment and the training to
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've taken a couple production courses with Hunter, and Middlebury College has a ton of, well, not a ton, but a decent amount of production courses to kind of give us that experience. And then, and in those courses, we've used all the equipment that we were using, the mics, the camera, all that. And so we were very much prepared going into it, knowing what we needed to do with the equipment, and kind of the different roles that everybody had to have on the team.
I think we were all well enough acquainted with each other that we were comfortable to work together and not be too timid about the fact that this is a deadline sort of film that we're working on, and if we needed someone to hurry up, or we needed to be honest with each other, it was a comfortable setting in which to do that. So I think that was helpful. 'Cause a lot of the film department classes are relatively small in size, so a lot of us have crossed paths, and then Mike and Matt and I have worked on other film things, and so we were all well acquainted going into it.
Yep, great. So before we watch it, can you tell us what the required pieces were, so viewers can kind of be looking for some of that?
Sure. One was we got a set of buttons that advertised was it a coffee?
Bicycle
shop.
Bicycle
shop. Called Magli and Narrow.
Magli and Narrow.
Right. And one was a line about a storm coming, because I think Barry kind of just threw that in there because of the approaching hurricane.
Right.
I'm blanking a little bit.
Right, so this was right before Sandy.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that'd be an interaction between two characters talking about a storm coming, and then we had to, the film had to start with a Fish line.
Oh, right.
A lyric from any Fish song, and then that had to kind of work into the film somehow.
Right.
And
that had to be at the start?
Yeah, it had to be at the start. We also had to have 5 main actors, right? We had to use 5 actors. That was
5 actors.
another one. And then, were there any more? Oh, we had to use the new
The mural.
mural in,
that's
on
what it
Church
was,
Street,
exactly.
right off Church Street. So we had to use that within the piece in a significant way.
Right. Great.
Couldn't just be in the background.
Okay, so now we know what to be looking for there, and this is Do As I Say. It was Team Middlebury's entry into the Sleepless in Burlington contest, which was part of the Vermont International Film Festival this year. So here it comes.
Taglianero. Just printed right there. This is the real deal.
They're just wonderful. We'll have half the neighborhood wearing them. April, honey, I think you'd like this one. I'll leave it here. You ought to wear it to school.
I will give you a whole box for you to share with your friends. And I will need you to help me at the store this weekend, and I will have you as the register.
I hope it burns.
What did you just say?
I hope it burns. I hate your stupid shop, and I hope it burns.
April! You absolutely cannot
That
speak
store
like...
is everything, young girl. It's time for you to learn it.
If I'm lucky, you'll burn with it.
You got a storm coming for you. I'll see to that.
Dad,
You have to be more patient. Sometimes life doesn't happen unless you wait for it. Now, people will tell you differently, especially your generation. You know, always trying to catch something. When I was a boy, things were slower. We learned patience because we had to. But you're all rotten. Patience takes effort, and well, patience. Good things come to those who wait.
I will have her working that store every damn night.
But you're a smart girl. You know the difference between right and wrong. The problem is that everyone knows the difference between right and wrong, but no two folk ever know it the same. Do what you love what you do. The best advice my father ever gave me. There's no time to do anything else. And for God's sake, take your time. Be in the moment. Get out of your hard little head and just breathe. You best remember that.
what else, Dad?
Some things in life will catch you by surprise. And you'll adapt. It's a change or be changed world.
Own your mistakes. Fighting them only causes more pain than you've already caused. And when you take risks, know exactly what's at stake. So when those mistakes roll around, you'll be ready. There's so much more I could tell you.
Will you tell me why now?
It's probably best you don't know. Here's a key. There's a letter inside that explains more. This is yours, but be generous to your mother.
Thank you.
Team Middlebury's entry into the Sleepless in Burlington film contest. You're watching Real Local, and I'm Kurt Broderson, and we're back now with the filmmakers, Mike, Hunter, and Matt. Now we can talk a little bit more about some specifics of the film without kind of giving anything away. One of the things that struck me right off watching was the cutting back between the two times, the father and daughter conversations, and then the family in the home. How early on did you think of the kind of dual storylines going on?
That was there with the conception of the actual story. We wrote the script with that cut back and forth format inside of it. I think that we tried to have two contrasting sides of his character that both had their own storyline to an extent that met at the very end, which was our ultimate goal of building these two lines that come together in the end.
Right. We talked a little bit about the locations earlier in terms of how familiar with Burlington would you guys be. Certainly the scene on the bridge was one when I was watching it at the screening. It's a very great visual. And how did you find your locations or choose them?
That location, Ethan was familiar with that. Ethan, our advisor, and yeah, it's a really interesting location. That's actually a bridge to nowhere. It crosses that overpass. What road is that again? I can't remember what the highway that is.
Turnpike.
Highways, yeah.
There's a fence on the other side of it.
Yeah. Ethan kind of had that just as a possibility, and before we I mean, before we left, we actually had a spreadsheet going, like a Google Doc, that had just all locations that we could use for anything.
Right.
And so, as we were coming up with the story, we were sort of referring back to this list, like, okay, what can and can't we do? And so that was one option amongst many, and that just happened to be one that we thought fit well. And yeah, that wide shot at the end we thought was a really nice way to just kind of close things up.
Yeah, and it gives you a great opportunity to have them going in separate directions, very, visually distinctly. Now, we talked a little bit while the film was playing about the house scene, and how did you come across that as a location?
That one of my good friends from home goes to school in the Burlington area, and I called her up. She actually was away for the weekend, but I called her up. I was like, Brittany, can we possibly have the keys to your house for the weekend? And so she said, yes, absolutely. And that was about 11:30 on Friday night, maybe a little later. We were starting to get down to the wire. We had a few places fall through that we had originally thought were going to work out, but that came through in the clutch.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Brittany.
Yeah. Thank you, Brittany. So another thing, on Saturday morning, kind of where things started for people in my role, there was a big casting call, probably 30, 40 people, somewhere in that kind of range. You guys needed to pick 5 people to fill out the bulk of your cast. I guess you could have some extras and other things. Can you talk maybe a little bit about the directing actors that you just have met that morning, some of whom had a substantial amount of experience, some who haven't had much, even the 2 high school girls that played. I know one of them has done a lot of stage work. I didn't know too much about the girl who played the daughter in the family. April was the character's name. But what was that like directing the actors?
We were lucky to get Roy Cutler back for a second year. We had him the year before, and so Mike and I had worked with him, and we knew that he was a fun person to work with, and he also stayed late with us the year before, so we knew that if we needed to work late, we would be able to.
Right.
So we had him, and it was fun getting him back. I was already pretty comfortable starting to direct with him. And we shot the scenes with him and his daughter at the mural first, and so I got to know her a little bit on the drive over there. I mean, maybe a half hour I'm talking to her, trying to make both of us comfortable, really. And she ended up being really, really easy to work with, really excited, and really jumped right into her character. And then by the time, I think one of the cool things about this project is momentum. Like, as the day goes on, we just built more momentum with the project. Even though people are getting more tired, it's coming together more and more. We're seeing the actual product of what we were doing. And so by the time we went to shoot the house scene, we were on to our last few scenes that we just saw, with the actual robbery and the dinner, the little dinner with the family. And by that time, it took us a while to actually set all those shots up and, to light the house and everything like that. So for that period of time, I sat down with the writer, David, and those actors, and we just went through the script a whole bunch of times, which was helpful to get comfortable.
Yeah. Now, speaking of having worked with Roy before, I know he had done, he and I talked a little bit before the casting call there, and he had talked a little bit about the different roles he's played in stage or film productions, and it was pretty varied. I can't remember some of them off the top of my head, but quite a range of different kinds of characters. How did you see his character? Because I know when I saw the screening originally, I was a little, where is this character going? Is he after the girl in the house? Is he a criminal who, you see him start to pick up things? But I was curious, are those mementos, or is this an actual theft as the primary motive? And we talked a little bit about that. Could you kind of expand on that idea a bit?
I think that's one place that I didn't have enough foresight to define his character clearly enough in those scenes in the house. We were all on the same page in thinking that Roy was a professional theft, and this has been his livelihood, and these principles that he's sharing with his daughter on this walk are what have kept him out of trouble, what have kept him, successful at what he does. And so the daughter does not know this, the one that he's walking with, does not know that he is a thief. And so he's trying to share some life wisdom through how he has learned it. And we did not want his character to be malicious. It seems, because it's so dark, and I think that he's creeping around the house, he comes off a little bit more malicious than we intended. But this time of reflection that he's having while walking with his daughter was supposed to have come out of his realization that his lifestyle, his career choice, was something that is really going to take his daughter away from him.
Right.
Yeah, we really wanted to kind of have, that was kind of the point of having that cut back and forth between the bridge scene and the home scene, was just kind of to juxtapose, his relationship with his daughter and then his just connection to this little girl who had been getting in an argument with her father. And so just to kind of make it appear more that he is sympathizing with this little girl and it is no way a threat to anybody. And that was very much the point of having the talk with his daughter, was to kind of make him come off as a character that is relatable and that people kind of can connect with and understand a little more.
Yeah, I thought there was the scene where you're looking at the mural. We were talking that there's so many opportunities. What do you want to show there? And certainly focusing on the family scene there, it gives you a lot of things to think about in terms of father-daughter relationships. The family on one side, Roy's characters. The wife is somewhere else. I'm assuming it's an ex-wife from the way they talk on the bridge. But that when you looked at the mural, did that kind of jump out at you as something or did it take you a while to decide what to film there?
When we went to the mural the night before, kind of as we had, David went off to write, and then we kind of separated, and a bunch of us went down to downtown by Church Street, and we were looking at the mural, and our first idea was, all right, we need a shot of a family or a father and a daughter, something along those lines. And when we got there, the mural has so much in it, like you said, that right away we connected with this shot of just kind of a little girl on a bike and then a father nearby, and it kind of just represented a family, and we thought that it was the perfect image for our character to open up looking at, to kind of for him to connect with as he realizes that he's about to go to prison and he's about to have a very important last talk with his daughter.
Right.
So help to flesh his values out was our intention with that, I think, too.
Yeah, it was a nice way to kind of visually get that started. And speaking of getting it started with the fish quote, Vermont and fish, take you long to narrow down a quote that you wanted to work with?
That's actually funny.
Going to the
music guy.
Yeah, well, as soon as I heard that was one of the elements, I immediately started emailing a bunch of my friends who are just huge fish fans, and of course they all immediately got back to me with just like lists and lists of fish quotes. So we had a lot to sift through, and there's so much interpretation that can happen in a quote, and the question was, do we make it like something very obvious? Do we interpret a quote literally, or do we do something that's more sort of like open-ended? And I forget who decided what we settled on, but we thought it was whatever you do, take care of your shoes. And I think we like that because you hear that and like everybody just kind of chuckles when they hear that, like, oh, that's funny. But yet in our movie we used it as a very serious thing, and I think we were kind of attracted to the idea of like having that open up and people being like, okay, and then seeing like a very serious movie unfold. I think we just kind of liked that.
Yeah, it takes a while to kind of, I think with all the films, starting with a quote and wondering, where is it going to go? How's it going to tie in? And like you mentioned earlier, thinking about, this is Roy's, work. It's not, it's not just that he's a thief. It's kind of, that's his profession in a way, and the shoes are a very utilitarian kind of thing there, and it did come back, and it took a while for me to kind of think of the first time I saw the film, but it was obviously there. Can you talk a little bit more about the music, Mike, and how you kind of put that all together?
Well, I brought up a bunch of gear, as Hunter sort of mentioned earlier, and but if you don't have a story, or when we had sort of a story, we didn't have a script yet, so like you kind of have to be prepared for anything. So I brought electric guitar, acoustic guitar, keyboard, and like I had basically a full setup in this hotel room, and so as you're shooting, the idea of the music really for me is it's all about the mood of the film. It's like, how do you want people to feel as they're watching this movie? And so when you're shooting, as I mentioned earlier, on set, you're sort of you have a mind for that. You're sort of looking and watching these scenes unfold and thinking, how is this going to look on camera, and how do we want the audience to feel when we see this? And so throughout the entire thing, I was kind of just, if I had like a second to speak to Matt, I would just kind of be like, like what this scene right here, like what do we want this to kind of feel like? And so I was sort of gathering ideas, so that way when I sat down, at midnight, I wasn't just like totally without any ideas. And so we knew it's nice to kind of like compartmentalize what you have to do. So I knew we wanted like a nice song at the end, like a emotional song at the end, like a nice theme. And so that was my main focus, is sort of fleshing out what we wanted that to feel like. And then the rest is kind of like, when he's in the house, you want to set the tone, and it's all things like that. And but the music is very much like, I'm the guy who does it, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that I was always on the same page with the writer, that I was always on the same page with the director, with the cinematographer, really with everybody, because it's an important thing, and so I didn't want to sort of just like unilaterally imprint like a mood on it. So we kind of all decided, the general idea, and then I sort of went and said, okay, let's make that happen.
So late at night, what was that back and forth like between the editing and the composing and performing, because you did all of it?
Yeah, it's
back and forth between two rooms.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, I think we had a great time. I mean, in the moment, it's definitely pretty stressful, just to kind of be running back and forth, and I'm editing, trying to cut out chunks of it that don't fit, or trying to make it work, and then Mike's just going hard and composing this music, and but it was also just an amazing feeling for at like, I don't know, 4 or 5 a.m. when I started putting in the music, and I was watching it, and I was just like, we have a film here, which was just kind of the greatest feeling, just after we had worked so hard through the entire weekend, come up with the story, come up with the script and everything. Just to see it all come together in the end was a great feeling, just to kind of have Mike run over that music. I throw it in the timeline, and then press play, and then we just had these big grins on our face because we realized that we had something finally.
That was another big roadblock also that both of you dealt with, was the film could be between 5 and 9 minutes. I think after our first cut we were at 11 minutes or so.
Something around there.
And so, I mean, it's not easy when you feel like all 11 minutes are integral to a film. It's not easy to go through and, to chop out things that you really like or things that you think are necessary. And so Matt, under the, right down to the wire, was just keeping us right in line. And I think it came out around 8.
It was around 8,
17
yeah.
or so.
The time crunch is really interesting. I mean, doing creative work, generally speaking, when you do things like that, time is not an issue. Like, being creative in a knowing you only have like 3 more hours to do this is like, it's a little bit crazy. And you sort of like have like little things that you can rely on, like little things how to do musically that you can sort of just like call upon. And it's just really different than any other work that you do as somebody in the arts. Usually it's just not like that. And so I think it's a really unique challenge, but it's definitely fun. It's definitely fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly looked like you guys had a great time pulling it all together, and like you said, I mean, you have a film.
Yeah.
And what time did you guys end up turning it in? Like, how down to the wire was it?
Well, we wanted it, so we were very cautious because we knew that the deadline was what, noon?
Noon on the dot.
So we knew that we wanted to have something ready earlier, just in case.
Right.
And so around 8 or 9, I exported, and the export took about 20 minutes. And so we exported a version then with, it was essentially the exact film that we have, except it didn't have any color correction and a few sound effects and some sound design work. And so we had that exported, and so if we needed, we were more than happy with submitting that. And then after that, I worked for another hour or so on just kind of going over it. I had everybody come in and say what works, what doesn't work, is there any particular point that you don't like? And they kind of came up with different ideas, and then as they were doing that, I went and did a color pass on it and gave it a little bit of a color correction touch to it, and then we exported again, and that was very stressful. If the earlier in the night around 3 or 4 a.m. wasn't stressful enough, that was very stressful, and we got it out, and it was finished exporting around 11:45, 11:40, and luckily, our hotel was right across the street from from where we were screening, and so we ran across the road and submitted it with about 10 minutes to spare, which was great.
Yeah, and then it made its debut just 6-7 hours later, kind of very hot off the presses with all the groups turning stuff in, and it was just a great thing to have my little part of it. I'm really glad I could have you guys in today. Now, the two of you are graduating this year.
Yep.
Mike, you'll still be around for a semester next year. Interest in doing it again?
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those
He
things
knows
where
he will. He knows
Yeah.
he
He's
will.
gonna do it.
He's playing hard to get it. He knows he's doing it again.
I think I'd probably like to. Yeah, if Ethan will have me. I mean, maybe if there's somebody else who wants to do it in my position, then I'll definitely say that guy should do it. But if there's no one else who wants to do sound, then I'm more than happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and you guys have advice to next year's team or others interested in these? Because I think these 24 or 48-hour film slams are kind of a more of a predominant way of doing these competitions these days. And any kind of advice to the next guys?
Think small. I think that would be don't be afraid. I mean, we worked great as a team. Definitely be open to everybody's ideas. Don't be afraid to kind of, shut down some other people's ideas, but just be willing to work with other people as a group, which is, we definitely worked as a great group, but also just overall with the film, just kind of think small.
I'd say watch short films. Like, we watched, for the week leading up to it, I watched a whole bunch, and we got together as a group a few times and watched some, and I really think it is a different type of film. You can only fit so much of an arc of story or character in it, and just be conscious that you, like Matt said, you aren't trying to have a character completely change by the end of your 7 minutes. It's not going to be as effective. And also maybe, I think on a time schedule, with a setup like this, maybe have some story shells that you come into the weekend with about, just character hits problem, how does he solve it, or how does she solve it? Come in with some basic ideas that aren't scripts, but just, keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. So what are the next steps for you guys? Do you have other films in the works, classes you're taking next semester? I know it's finals week right now.
It's finals week.
It's finals week right now, but we're actually, the three of us plus 4 other people, we're going to be putting together a short film during J-term that we'll be working as our class. And so we'll be doing an independent project, putting those together, which is the next project, but I'm sure we have plenty of projects after that.
We both have senior thesis films in the spring too. So
now, is that a 1-semester thesis, or is it spread?
Yeah, it's a 1-semester thesis.
I'm sure I'll get roped into that.
Any kind of hints as to what we can expect
from J-term?
From J-term, it's going to be I'm writing and editing. We're planning on making a dark comedy, and hopefully utilizing a lot of different locations within the town to film.
Great. Well, and if you need location advice or any help, I'd be glad to come aboard.
You.
So, we will be having a link to your film certainly on our Facebook page, and this larger interview and film will be online and on cable as soon as we get it up. I'd like to thank all three of you guys for coming in, Matt, Hunter, and Mike, all from Middlebury College. Once again, this is Real Local. I'm Kurt Broderson, and this is Team Middlebury. Thanks very much for coming in today, and thanks for watching.